Hello and welcome a new video. In your opinion, what is the biggest red flag in a relationship? Don't forget subscribe. If you notice anything and think they will grow out of this or they will change when we settle down or I can change them, then you're probably overlooking a big red flag. When they unnecessarily label all of their exes as crazy or bitches. Generally, when someone thinks all of their exes are insane, it's a red flag. Of course, there are always the people who really did have terrible luck and dated crazy person after crazy person. But more often than not, it's a huge red flag. Best advice I saw on Reddit was that each partner should feel like the other is contributing 70%. If you feel like you're contributing 70%, you'll wind up feeling used. If your partner doesn't think you're contributing 70%, they'll start to feel equally taken advantage of. Nothing is ever 50-50ths, so someone's always going to be putting in more work than the other at some point. So the question really becomes how much variance you can deal with. I like the 70% number because it's well above the threshold for keeping score and well below the point where keeping score wouldn't matter. It's basically the happy medium that could equal trust that both parties have the other's best interest at heart. The problem with red flags is that they aren't all interchangeable nor universal for every relationship. For example, not everybody disapproves clinginess. Some couples like to spend every waking hour with one another, and that can be a wonderful thing. Yet for Reddit threads like these, typically the first response has something to do of that nature. The only honest and legitimate answer is that only you can notice the red flag for what doesn't work for you. Nobody else has the ability to tell you this. You know what you like, love, dislike, hate, want and don't want in a relationship. It's all about being honest with yourself. Only you have the executive decision to make something work or choose against it. It's really that simple. I totally agree with this. I knew a girl who had a really clingy boyfriend and just finally broke up with him last week after a while of trying to. It got the point it was dangerous because he was essentially forcing her to stay around by threatening to kill himself, constantly following her around school and other things. Looking back, it was apparent that this would happen. He always had to hang out with her, and when she said no, he would have a mental breakdown. They would fight if she even acknowledged another boy existed. She essentially couldn't have her own life, which is sad because she is a bright, motivated person. The biggest red flag is if your mate doesn't deal with no very well. In the beginning, they may make attempts to appear that they are flexible, but you can usually tell if they're uncomfortable with your "no, I'm not doing this. If this comes up, I can guarantee you as the relationship progresses, it's going to get worse." When I see this early on, there's going to be trouble eventually. If they are nosy and invasive before a relationship, it will get worse if you date them. First time I met my last GF, she took my phone and went through every photo even when I kept hinting I wanted it back. But I was extremely awkward and quiet back then, so I figured it was normal. I dated her a year later, with many experiences similar to that one in between, and my God, was it awful. She went through every text and email and picture I had. She became paranoid and told me I couldn't hang out with this one girl because we had so many inside jokes she didn't understand in her text. An old friend who was female visited town and she demanded to come along and meet her and asked her lots of questions about me to the girl. Lots of stuff I would have gladly answered if she didn't alienate my old friend. But yeah, a nosy girl will cause a whole lot of drama over nothing is my experience. You make me want to be a better person. I've had 2 exes say this fairly early in the relationship and they turned out to be fairly ugly character-wise. You should already be a good person. I shouldn't have to be your role model. When they have had tons of short-lived relationships. To me, that says any combination of the following. They A. Enter into relationships recklessly or carelessly. B. Grow bored or give up easily. C. Confuse dating with fucking around. D. Fear being single. E. Do something to drive off their partners quickly. That's just my way of doing things though. If we're talking about a real relationship, I don't want to get close to someone unless I'm sure there is a good chance it will work. It's like if I was hiring someone for a job. Would I want the applicant who had 4 jobs in the last 6 months or 2 jobs in the 4 years? When someone is quick to push off other people's feelings or opinions with "I don't care" or "that's stupid," it starts off with small things that you probably agree with. But this mindset will eventually lead to things you find important and care about, i.e. day 1. Whatever, I don't really care if people care a lot about spending a lot of money on weddings. I think that's stupid. Day 64. It's stupid to want to go away just for that one weekend. I have too much work to do. I don't care if you really want to go. Day 536. I don't care that you're upset. It's stupid to buy a plane ticket to see your parents over Christmas. People never really bring this one up, but it's important and easy to brush off at first. Getting cheated on. on. It may sound obvious, but so many people stay with the ones who cheat on them only to eventually cheat themselves out of spite or otherwise kill the relationship due to the weight of being cheated on. Same goes for when you're so gets with someone else on a break. I know a lot of people who stick around far too long after these things, and it's never the same afterwards. It just wastes a lot of valuable time slowly dissolving because a quick snip is too hard to do, or they just don't want to be without another person for a little bit, wanting me to put her ahead of everyone and everything else in my life. We dated for about 3 years. She told me that if we get married we would spend every single Christmas with her family, because that was important to her. She also told me she wouldn't live anywhere else besides where she was from. Wasn't up for debate, wasn't a question. That's just how it was going to be. When you find yourself canceling stuff with friends because he or she needs you, that is usually combined with talking shit about your friends. A little at first, then more and more. Dreaming about going away and starting something new away from everyone. It's all ways to isolate your partner so the abuse can start. Seen it happen to way too many friends. The best advice as a friend is to keep staying in touch even though they are fucking assholes. When you get hit the first time you need someone bad, the problem is that usually don't have anyone left but your partner. Having everything I did be taken for granted, bringing up obvious problems that needed to be addressed, only to have them be glossed over and ignored. Being controlled to the point that I afraid to look around, lest my eye pass over another woman, starting a huge fight because I clearly thought she was more attractive. Letting myself be suppressed in favor of keeping the peace. Never again. If they try to rush anything you're not comfortable with at the current stage of the relationship, sex, meeting family, etc., and don't consider your point of view, try to slow it down and tell them about your discomfort. I can't count the number of times I've done this for exes. Don't be so quick to set aside your beliefs for someone else's happiness. I'm still working on it, to be honest. Poor emotional health. This includes many of the things mentioned by other posters. All of them are some flavor of low emotional health. Many people think relationships is mostly about the connection and chemistry. So no matter what the other person's emotional health is, if they are the one, then it's a good idea. Classic Hollywood. I think that's deeply flawed. Love and connection can grow. On the other hand, emotional health changing for the better ain't that simple, and it will utterly wreck the relationship no matter how good the connection. The complete opposite of the is he or she the one attitude. The one that scares the hell out of me is when they start hinting at marriage or moving in after an insanely short amount of time, like 2 weeks in. After that point, I've been finding they jump the gun on that stuff because they're trying to get commitment before they drop the beginning of the relationship personality. Those I've dated who've taken it easy and fun have proven to be some of the longest and best relationships. I find that when you feel disdain or contempt for someone even once in a relationship, you cannot recover from that, and it is a sure sign that you should get out. For example, they may do something that is silly or stupid, and if you laugh or find it cute or want to help them, fine. If you feel contempt or that they are less than you, then it is over. Once you put them in that category, even once it bleeds into the rest of the relationship like a poison. This goes for romantic and non-romantic relationships, but lack of honesty is my biggest flag. Even if she is not cheating on me, if she is lying constantly for no reason, I can't stand it. Once I had a girl who would constantly change stories when we were with friends. She'd always alter them in a way to make herself look better. Like, we'd come up with a silly idea for Halloween costumes, and she would be all for it until the day came. Then she had to assure everyone that it was mostly my idea. She had to be dragged into it. I'm sitting there like, what? You have been pushing these costumes for like a month. It's not a big lie or anything, but it troubles me because if she will lie about petty little things, then what else will she lie about? When you find yourself justifying the relationship to yourself, like, oh, sure, we have trouble communicating, but we both love this band and order the same thing at Starbucks. That's sort of a silly example, but what I mean is that even if every superficial sign points to a relationship working, if it feels wrong, it's wrong. Period. There's that line from Pulp Fiction that I'll never forget because it's so freaking true. If you can sit in silence with a year so, then you have a unique chemistry that is hard to find. In my opinion, if you're in a relationship and you always feel like you need to be talking or need to carry the conversation for it not to be awkward, or you can't sit in silence without it being awkward, then it's a really bad sign. Obviously, there are other red flags, but as far as chemistry and compatibility is concerned, this is true. Good stuff in this thread. My 2 cents about interpreting it. Sent 1. Understand which advice applies to you and which doesn't. There are 2 separate posts, one of which identifies clinginess, the other emotional distance as red flags. Clinginess, for me, is a huge red flag. I like space and personal time. Emotional distance is not one for me. A girl who also likes the same might actually be just like me, rather than a cold, heartless bitch. In any event, we'll be better for each other than if I dated a clingy girl. In The Immortal, if grammatically incorrect words of Neil Peart, the spaces in between leave room for you and I to grow. Sent 2. Please understand what red flag means. Something that makes you stop what you're doing and examine the situation. It does not mean ditch everything and run screaming from the situation. The number of post responses that said this isn't really a red flag, it's just something you should stop to consider. That is a red flag. If you stop, take serious consideration, and then continue, fine. When your friends tell you he or she is not good for you, then your friends seem to all be somewhere else and not with you. Then the only friend you have is him, her. When they hurt you and say it was your fault for making them angry or mad, when they hit you in anger or to control, we'll leave out sex. And watch out for that 40 to 60-year-old male who loves kids. He's involved in sports, children's activities, etc. Predators seek an opposite gender mate to ally suspicions to his life's motives. My ex and I watched a drama once and a girl talked about getting raped. I was crying at the scene and he told me not to pity her because she said yes and then changed her mind, so she deserves it. I was really young and stupid and didn't realize it was a red flag until much later. But I really don't recommend dating anyone who blames the victim in situations like that. To me, it would have to be arguing a lot at the beginning of the relationship. It happened to a friend of mine. They weren't even dating yet and they were already arguing like a married couple. I warned him it should never start like this, but he waved me off. They ended up getting together, moving in together, and 2 weeks in they're miserable. When she doesn't want you to hang out with friends or family, all your attention should be on her at all times. I said she because 9 times out of 10 I see this happen with a lot of my male friends and their girlfriends. It goes both ways, but when a male does it to his girlfriend, everyone immediately identifies it as abuse. I think when one tries to control who the other hangs out with is a big red flag. For example, my husband's former best friend wasn't the type of person I liked. He was impulsive, had no goals or plans, and didn't want to grow up. They were childhood friends, and it was clear that he was stuck in the past. They did stupid stuff together and got in trouble. I knew my, at the time, boyfriend was to blame. I didn't hide that I didn't like the friend, but I made it clear I didn't care if they hung out, etc. Eventually, we got married and my husband saw what I had been seeing for all those years and they grew apart. Someone who lies without even noticing and can lie easily. I've met a couple people who without even noticing it they lie. I understand little white lies, but the fact they can do it unconsciously and so easily makes me worry. Like I'd ask my ex if he took a Redbox movie back and he'd say yeah knowing he hadn't. No big deal I know, but I'm not a fighter nor will I question what you've told me. I believe it's true until I find out otherwise, like finding the Redbox movies in the living room. Even then I won't fuss, I'd just take them back. I'm not one to bicker or ask questions I already know the answer to, so I just don't understand why people lie about small things like that. It's so silly to me, and it makes me feel like they would lie about bigger things and are undependable. So that's a red flag to me.